Good evening. Welcome to PoliticIt podcast. We've got Rachel Terry tonight, coming off of this Attorney General thing at the convention. How was that for you?
Oh, it was amazing. It was such a great day. And I know that there's been a lot of negative things said about the convention that day, but I'd love to share what was positive for me.
Yeah.
So my question is that we have right now in the universities around the country having massive amounts of protests and riots that are occurring here inside the state of Utah. We've had same type of things that happened during the BLM riots and all that kind of stuff. Have people in the streets. I also work in risk management.
Where are you at?
The church. I work for the church as risk management.
Oh, we have similar jobs.
Yes. And so we look at our church buildings is what I'm involved in, looking at the meeting houses and all those things, and we're seeing a large amount of vandalism that is occurring, but nobody is able to do anything. Police aren't able to do anything. We're not getting anybody. They're just saying, here, fill out the reports, and we'll get to it when we get to it. So as the Attorney General, looking at the potential for future with the Israel-Gaza thing going on, the people in the streets, potential students riots and things like that. What does the AG's office, what can you do or what can be done to quell such things?
Yeah, so when it comes to, we have to make sure it's equal justice for all under the law, which means it doesn't matter who's protesting or why. When they cause property damage, even if they say it's for a good cause or it's a socially acceptable cause, we still prosecute for it. And because otherwise, where's the confidence and trust in the system if we say, oh, your protest is just so you can start a building on fire, but your protest isn't, so we're going to put you in prison. That's unacceptable. And we have to make sure that we are treating everyone, whatever they're doing, equally under the law, and we apply it uniformly. And these protests that have bordered on anti-Semitism, that should stop.
So I made it out of convention. I squeaked through, but
40.24%.
40.24%.
That is squeaking by, isn't it?
Squeaking by. But it was amazing. It was such an amazing experience for me. As a first-time candidate, someone who's new to the campaigning world, what the caucus convention system did for me was allowed me to engage with people in a very personal way, which is my preference. Like, I'm a one-on-one or small group campaigner. I loved that the caucus convention system gave people an avenue to just connect with me and for me to connect with them. There were several times people would call my phone number and I'd say, hi, let's talk. And they'd say, okay, well, can you pass a message on to Rachel? I'd say, oh, you're talking to me. Like, We're talking, we're engaging. The cottage meetings, the meet the candidate events, all of it allowed me to get my message off in a really personal way and to engage with people in a very personal way. And then the day of convention was so much fun. I had all my siblings, my nieces and nephews, my dad came, my kids, my friends, my women I went to law school with, they all came and they're wearing my shirt and they're engaging with people. We're passing out homemade cookies that my neighbors had made and these Tic Tacs that had my logo on them. And we had this great booth and there was so much positive energy. And yes, there were some people who were not very nice, who did not behave appropriately.
Right.
But 90% of the people there were there for the right reasons, were there because they'd done their homework, they had gone to the meet and greets. I loved the people who had like spreadsheets and notes because they had actually talked to all the candidates, they'd gone to the events, and it was such an amazing day. And for me, someone who I don't have a lot of personal wealth, I've been an attorney for a long time, but 10 years ago I chose to go into public practice and serve the state. I was able to really engage and connect with people. It was amazing. The energy was positive.
I think that's one thing people miss. On people that don't go to the caucus meeting and don't engage in that, sometimes they don't see the value in it. But I think for the party, it actually allows. It's like the representative form of government. I mean, this is,
it really is.
I mean, you pick someone from your neighborhood that then engages with the candidates. And it's not like you can only talk to them once, right?
Right.
When you were saying they had spreadsheets and stuff like that, I know we've done a lot of these interviews.
Yeah.
And I was surprised how many people had watched them.
People were watching the interviews, people were listening to the podcast, people were emailing me with specific questions, texting, calling, coming to multiple events. Like, there were several people who, if they didn't feel like they got a complete answer from me, they would come to another event and ask again, and we would engage. They were on I had 150 events from the time I declared on June 4th.
Boy, that's a lot of work, isn't it?
It was a lot of work.
And you can see why maybe an incumbent that had been in for a while says, I don't know if I want to do all that work, right?
Yeah, they just want to kind of hang out and not, and that is probably why the system does disfavor incumbents in a way. But
because the incumbents don't engage.
They don't engage.
Right.
They don't engage. But for the people who are willing to show up and talk to people and really get the message out, and I often got people say, Rachel, you are different from other candidates, because when I had Zoom events, I had numerous Zoom town halls. I didn't moderate any of the questions. I let people ask me questions. I let them see what questions were asked, and then I just answered them.
Right.
And if they didn't like it, that was okay. They deserved an honest answer from me.
Right.
And 150 events where people could actually talk to me. And it wasn't just me talking to them. That was the other thing that's really great about this process, is that they were telling me what matters to them. And
Right.
what I heard over and over is that what matters to them in an attorney general is they want someone they can trust. They want someone who will do the work. They want someone who is committed to the rule of law and protecting Utah from federal overreach, and also watching out for our kids online and from crime and from predators. And those are the things that I care about the most.
See, and I think that's, not only do people pay attention and they vet people, but it also gives the candidates a chance to really see what people are thinking.
Yes. And that was something that I came away with such a profound respect for the diversity of our state. And we never use the word diversity to talk about our state.
Yeah, right.
But people are in such different places ideologically, socially, economically. And I was able to actually engage with people in a way where I understood the issues in their communities better than I ever would have if my campaign was limited to billboards and
60-second,
TV ads.
60-second sound bites. And in fact, what I noticed, my wife Heather and I were both delegates, right? And, we were getting all the flyers in the mail. We were getting the emails and we were getting the text messages. But, like the flyers that came, I hardly looked at them. And you say, well, maybe I wasn't being a good delegate. No, I hardly looked at them because I already knew the people that sent them, right? Yes. Because I'd been to an event and talked to them in person.
That's right.
And really got to know who they were and what they were about.
And my husband's favorite county to go to their events was Tooele.
Really?
Yes, it was Tooele, and we've, shout out to the Tooele delegates, because when he went to Tooele, and he covered a lot of events for me there because there were scheduling conflicts, they really engaged with him. They asked him questions. They shared with him what mattered to them, and they didn't seem to come from a place of they'd already made up their minds. There was an openness to them, and he had a great experience. I mean, everywhere I went, I had a good experience. I would say the only downside is of the convention system was that there is a small group of people who are very loud online and can be really combative and difficult. Yeah. And they carry, I think, more influence than they would otherwise. But overwhelmingly, the engagement was positive. It was really positive. And there are things that I learned about that I had underappreciated. Like, I live in Bountiful. Public lands issues don't impact me in Bountiful like they do the residents in San Juan and Wayne and Juab and Garfield and Uinta. And another thing I didn't appreciate until I'd spent time in Duchesne and Uinta is how much public lands and energy impacts those communities.
Right, yeah. We're going to take a break, and we'll come right back.
Yes.
I know you've worked in the office. You are the right person for the job. The people of Utah just need to know what is the best why to vote for Rachel.
Why Rachel?
Yes, why Rachel? Take a second, figure it out.
I'm ready.
Several candidates have already tossed their hats into the ring. Rachel Terry is one of them.
Rachel, welcome.
I'll take it. We're talking to Rachel Terry.
It's Rachel Terry.
And she just filed her paperwork.
I'm 100% ready to hit the ground running.
Talked to a lot of people in Utah, and so I've decided to endorse Rachel Terry, who works in the office. I think she'll be a great ally of Texas.
State sovereignty has to be a number one issue.
The immigration situation is out of control, and we have to stop the madness.
We have seen the Biden administration in every possible way overstep states' rights. My platform, my agenda, my strategy for the office is to really refocus on the attorney part of Attorney General. I will fight for the state of Utah all day, every day.
Welcome back to PoliticIt. We've got Rachel Terry here, candidate for Attorney General. Well, you know, why don't you let's talk a little bit about, for one, that commercial that you did I thought was very clever. So why don't you just kind of talk about the points that you were making there and what your themes are.
Thank you. So my commercial was to try to help people understand why I'm running, because that is the number one question I get is, why are you running for Attorney General? I've been a practicing attorney for 20 years, spent 7 years in the Attorney General's office, and I'm passionate about the work, but that's not enough to help them connect with who I am. And so it was a difficult decision to run. When you run for office, you are putting yourself out there for everyone to criticize. You are putting your family out there for everyone else to see and to scrutinize. And I wanted people to understand, like, this is all about my vision for the state of Utah, and it's about how this is part of my family. Like, we are all in. And the things that I share in that video, and we'll share it with this podcast, is that the reason I'm running is because I really am passionate about what's happening in the state of Utah. I know how it impacts, the Attorney General's work impacts the economy, because especially when we talk about public lands and what's happening in our rural counties, that if we don't win these public lands fights, we will lose those economies. We will lose those ranching families and the communities and the schools that support them. When it comes to energy, making sure that we have, that we are fighting to make sure that energy policy is making energy more affordable, not less affordable for families. When we're talking about the laws that impact our schools and our universities, those need to be good policies, because that impacts, the work that you're doing, that you've brought up, which is, I have kids in the school system, and I want that to matter. And this is what I'm fighting for.
It's interesting on those policies. People are coming after me because they say I hate public ed, but
no.
and they're not happy with the school choice stuff. But when I explain to people, people aren't leaving public schools because bad teachers, right? They love our teachers.
They love the teachers.
Yeah, and we've tried to show that love with funding and stuff, but they're leaving because of the bad stuff that's going on, right? All the political things that are entering that, and so it's interesting that you bring that up. On the federal, I don't know if you noticed the other day at the Berkshire Hathaway meeting. Did you notice that that Warren Buffett actually talked about Utah? And he talked about our work with preserving our available and dispatchable power, and our approach to that, right? And I was actually surprised that he brought that up.
That's really interesting.
That's one of the issues, though, right? We don't want to pollute the environment, but
no, and that's the funny thing that you hear from environmental groups who are promoting shutting down the lands is, well, that's because Utah doesn't take good care of it. We take amazing care of it. Like, our ranching families have been doing that for 6 generations. They've been taking care of it before it was cool to take care of it,
right? Because
that's their livelihood. We think, like, our national parks. We love our national parks. We love the recreation.
Yeah, in fact, during COVID, we actually paid to keep them open.
We paid to keep them open. We are great stewards of the land, and no, it's not perfect, but the way the federal government is treating public lands is to shut off access. But it's not just shutting off access to protect it. It's shutting off all use. Like, that means no recreation. It means no energy. It means no ranching. And no use isn't good for that land either. And we're talking, there's plenty of places that are completely preserved. We're not talking about putting a oil rig in the middle of Zion. That's not happening.
Nor would we do that,
No,
right?
that'd be crazy. We love our parks. We love the natural resources we have. But we have fundamentally undervalued the multiple uses. And that's a big part of what the Attorney General's office does. The Attorney General's office does a lot of things, and not very many people know what it does. I'm fortunate enough that I get to work with the office every single day in my current job as the Director of Risk Management, because all the lawsuits come to risk and then we send them to the AG's office. And there's 550 employees. 300 of them are attorneys. Most of the office handles civil cases. About a fourth of the office handles criminal issues. They're doing everything. They're working on natural resources, Department of Corrections, education, higher ed, health and human services work, defending lawsuits, prosecuting bad guys, going after social media companies that are knowingly targeting and harming our children. All of this work is under the Attorney General's office. And it's the unseen work, and it's the boring stuff that really matters the most. And it's what I'm really good at, is the boring stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that's why you're now with the risk management, right?
Yeah.
Because you get to kind of see these things coming.
Yes. I get to see, like, what's interesting is I get to see the issues coming from far away. Like, federal overreach isn't just a buzzword. It really is impacting what we're doing in education and other things in our correction system, et cetera. So as the risk manager, I am over a staff of 35. I have a $200 million budget. I'm working on all kinds of super interesting things. And so I get to work on litigation, I get to work on legislation, I get to work on policy and budgeting. We're completely restructuring things. I mean, and I love it. And this is really what makes an impact. When you get down into the weeds of the issues, when you get to know the people in your office, you get to know the stakeholders for what you're doing and really work on the hard things, not just the cool public things, but the things that are going to have a lasting impact. That's what motivates me and drives me. It's something that I really enjoy, and I want to bring that expertise to the Attorney General's office.
So you moved to risk management, but you were in the office itself before, right?
I was. I spent 7 years in the Civil Rights Litigation Division. So I worked on big, complicated, and often sad cases. So one of the cases people might be familiar with is the Lauren McCluskey case, where a student was murdered at the U. I represented the University of Utah on that case.
So was that through the risk management?
Through risk management.
Because that lawsuit came
to risk management.
Right.
They sent it to the Attorney General's office, and I was assigned. While I was there, I worked on cases involving Title IX, cases involving sexual assault. I got to work on a really cool $1 billion trade secret case involving space technology for Utah State Space Dynamics Lab. I've worked on banking cases, transportation cases, highway patrol, Department of Corrections, adult probation and parole, working for the Board of Education.
So you were right in the middle of that.
I've just been in the middle of all the biggest cases.
Now the Attorney General actually is more of a management role, right?
It is.
Is that true, or?
Yes and no. So there is, like, the Attorney General really is the captain of that ship and sets the policy direction, and really should be involved in the biggest lawsuits to make sure that they are tracking with the priorities of the state.
Right.
And working closely with the legislature and the governors, we navigate those. But it's also managing the office so that it's all moving in the same direction. That means the budgeting, the management, but also being dialed into the law. Which is why I think it's so important to have someone who's actually been in the weeds of legal matters, who's represented clients in big cases, not just the smaller cases, like really understanding what it means to bring in all the stakeholders as you deal with sticky issues, and being focused on the broad impact that every part of the office can have on the state of Utah.
Right. Very good. Hey, so we're out of time. But why don't you make a pitch? Look at the camera and just make a pitch out there to the voters. Tell them who you are and
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Rachel Terry, and I'm running for Attorney General, and I would be honored to have your support in the primary, which is June 25th. I've been a practicing attorney for 20 years. I spent 7 years in the Attorney General's office working on some of the biggest, most complicated cases, and now I'm the director of a state agency with a large team of professionals and attorneys that I oversee. I'm running because this work matters. I know what the Attorney General's office can mean to individuals and to the state as a whole. For the last 4 months, I've heard from people across the state that tell me how important it is that they have someone who understands the work, that will continue to be someone that they can trust and who will fight for them every day. And I am that person, and I hope that I hope to become the next Attorney General for Utah, and I really appreciate being here with you today.
Thank you, Rachel. Very
Thank
good.
you.
We'll see you guys next week.